Hello and welcome to today's webinar on gaining user adoption. My name is Chad Collette and I lead the marketing team here at LedU Partners, who's a Microsoft Gold partner representing Dynamics CRM and Office 365, and we're also a Salesforce Silver consulting partner. Now, if you're a fan of the old movie, Field of Dreams, you're familiar with the saying, build it and they will come. Unfortunately, that's the same theory as many organizations deploy when it comes to implementing a customer relationship management system like Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics CRM, and many others. Now, today's content was originally presented at a session at LedU Partners CRM conference this past fall at Miller Park, home of the Milwaukee Brewers in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And as we all know, you can spend countless hours researching, developing, and deploying what you think is a solution that employees would want to use and love to use, but they're just not using it. And all that work and all those dollars you've invested are simply worthless. That's why it's so important to continuously focus on user adoption, and our presenter today has some proven tips that will help you see results. Now, before I get to all those great tips, I have a few quick housekeeping items to cover. First, I want to mention that today's webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand after the live session. All attendees will receive an email immediately following this webinar with a link to access the presentation. To ensure the best audio quality, we have everyone on listen-only mode. But if you have a question, please submit those in the question pane of your GoToWebinar control panel. If we have time at the end of the presentation, we'll field as many as possible. But if we don't get to your question, we will definitely follow up with you. Now, to kind of kick this off and make it a little bit interactive, I want to launch a quick poll that will pop on your screen. And we kind of want to find out from users what your current CRM user adoption rate is. Is it kind of on that 0 to 25%, 26 to 50, 51 to 75, 76 to 100, which basically in that category means that people are loving CRM or the product and they can't get enough of it, or do you not have a CRM product yet and you're just being proactive to make sure when you do implement that they're going to be using it. So as we kind of let the votes come in, I'd like to introduce our presenter, Steve Raybrock. Steve oversees the implementation of our CRM for oil and gas product at LedU Partners. From the kickoff meeting to go live and beyond, Steve works closely with companies to ensure that not only does the product and the service LedU provides meet their expectations, but continuously reinforces, again and again, the importance of user adoption at each and every company. It doesn't matter what industry they're in, and over time he's found out the tips that really works and what doesn't. And for everybody in this call, we're kind of looking at the polls coming in. We've got around 30% of our attendees that are kind of in that 0 to 25%, about 24% that are 26 to 50, 22 that are 51 to 75, and then a small percentage, just 7%, that have users that are loving it, and a number that are still hoping to get CRM sometime soon. So we'll let everybody kind of finish up voting, and I'm going to close this thing down. And Steve, I want to welcome you today. Thank you for joining us, and take it away.
All right, thanks, Chad. So if I got those numbers right, the first two categories, 0 to 25 and 26 to 50, was over half the group. So challenges with user adoption, but actually that's actually not bad. It's actually getting better out there from what I've noticed over the last few years. Initially it was a tough sell, CRM, to the user community, but I think more and more people are starting to just realize that that's part of what a lot of businesses use today. So with that being said, I'm going to jump into the agenda, and I was kind of excited that I think when we checked earlier this morning, over 25 states from the United States registered for today's webinar. So that means half the country is interested in user adoption as far as CRM goes. So here's a quick agenda. You can do everything right and still fail, right? You think you just got this thing covered, and it's all about, I just don't know what I don't know. So my goal here today is I'm going to go through, I think it's 27 points. And, man, if you nailed all 27 of them, I'd say you're in pretty good shape. Hopefully, there's a couple takeaways that you'll have. So we'll get into all of these in a minute. I'm a runner by trade. Actually, when I was younger, I was a runner, ran a few marathons and whatnot. So I'm gonna use races as a little analogy to kind of prepare you for what you're about to, go through. Or if you've embarked on CRM already, hopefully you'll agree with some of my analogies. And then we're going to break this down into 3 pieces. Really, what do I do before we go live with CRM? What are we going to do the day we go live with CRM? And then what do we do after? So that's the agenda for today. It really revolves around user adoption. So I just want to point out what this session isn't. So this session isn't about selecting a CRM, selecting a good partner. This isn't about doing design or development or customization. This is more from a business perspective. How do we get our users to really, take CRM for all the positive value we can add to them and for your organization? So gaining user adoption. So moving on. Oops. So let's talk races for a minute. And I really want to, send a clear message here that, I'm a big believer in you have a much better chance for success if you know what you're getting into. So if you think about running a race, if you knew what race you were running, you'd plan and prepare better depending on, what the race was. So I'm going to break this down into a couple pieces. Selecting a CRM solution and a partner. I mean, for some organizations, that is a big event, right? There's a lot of justification, a lot of research, a lot of learning, a lot of debate, and you finally get through that whole process and you make your decision, and you're exhausted. You think, wow, we finally made that decision, and in your mind, you just ran a marathon. It's kind of just take a break. Well, in reality, you probably just run a 5K. So it's a big race, a lot of effort, but there's more to come, so don't let your guard down. Then you go through the design and development. So you're designing the system, probably working with a consulting firm, doing development, doing testing, hopefully some, integration with your back office, all that hard stuff, and you're done now, right? It's looking good. You're ready to go live, and you're thinking, whew, I can let my guard down. Now I really ran a marathon. Well, in reality, I'm kind of thinking that's about a half marathon. So now you're going to go live, and you're going to start using CRM. You think, well, now we're just up and running. Now I can start coasting. Here's your marathon. And some of you are probably living and breathing this marathon right now because, it is not about the technical issues. It's not about integration. I mean, there are so many smart people around. They can make all that work. The biggest deal with CRM that I've observed is the people. And it's more of a culture change than a software implementation. So you've got to get ready for that. Now, like I said, I'm starting to see a shift out there where people are, not only getting more receptive for CRM, but actually I'm pleasantly surprised. Probably in the last 6 months, I've gone to more companies where the end users are actually the one driving it. So we are headed in the right direction. This is good, but I don't want you to let your guard down here. And I tried coming up with something a little cute here, so I don't want to shock you at all, but I'm going to run a very short clip here, and this is what I want you to think is going on in your company's mind, your user's mind, when you're saying, hey, we're going to get CRM and we're going to change things around here. And I want you to think this because I want you to always have your guard up to make this a big effort. This isn't like coasting time. Like Chad said, if you build it, they will come. Don't think that. Think this. So hold on, I'm just going to click this little video and we'll see what happens. So that's what a lot of users are thinking. Eyes are bugging out. They're wondering what's going to happen in my life. You're changing everything. I've got to learn a new system. Why can't I do it the old way? If you go in thinking this, and if your users are receptive, right, then it's gonna work out good. But prepare yourself for this. So anyway, just thought I would share that. So that's it. Let's move on. Here's what we want to have happen. We want that same user to work with your other users and climb that mountain of CRM. Be happy when they get there. Excited about the product. I actually was was really impressed with one company. It happened to be the Dynamics solution, so this could have easily have been Salesforce. But I went to do the training, and they had their team so ready for CRM. They actually had, everybody was wearing these buttons. I mean, so they really prepared their team. They knew what was coming. They had been involved in the testing and whatnot, and they just could not wait to get live on CRM. And man, that's just a joy for us here at LedgeView to be walking into that situation when it comes time for training. All right, so details. What to do before you go live. You'll notice some of these are very basic project management tasks, but some of them might just surprise you, and you might have just kind of taken some of these for granted. So like I said, I think there's 27 of them. So before we go live, what do? Your ultimate goal is to eliminate every excuse. So you want to make it a very positive experience. Anything you can think a user is complaining about, or could complain about, or could think is an issue, or could have a reason why we shouldn't do this, you want to address them. So you have to be really proactive here and try to, think of all them things. And some of them are obvious. So the first one here, ensure that your hardware and software meets the requirements of CRM. So CRM can be a fairly big tool. I know with Microsoft Dynamics, when you incorporate that into Outlook, I mean, it takes a pretty hefty machine to run your Outlook then, because now Outlook is doing so much more. So I've had clients where they said, okay, yep, we looked at the requirements, all the hardware and software is good, and we did the whole project, and life is good. And I went there to train the team, and there was maybe 30 people in the group, and about 15 of them kept, this thing was running slow, is timing out, all kinds of errors. And by the time we did a little research, found out about 15 of those machines didn't have enough memory, were on a slow processor, did not meet the requirements. So my rule, and I almost hate to say this because I'm a pretty naive person, is, I've learned not to trust anyone. So when I meet with a customer, I don't let their IT or technical person tell me it meets the requirements. I just ask them for a list of all the devices for the users who are going to use CRM with the hardware and software that's on that device. And then we, as a consulting firm, look that over, and then we say if it's going to, make the grade or not. So sometimes folks don't like to hear that, but it's like we just want this to be successful. So something really simple, like you think, hey, I want to make sure our team is on, has a good laptop or tablet or what have you. If they don't, I mean, day one, they're going to have an unpleasant experience, and, it's going to be a challenge. So let's just make sure we're real solid in that area. Another technique that you may want to try is getting those users with a lot of influence involved and on board, and get them, on the positive side, if you will. So when they're talking to, their coworkers, they're talking in the right sense, in a positive way. And it might be something where, you pull a couple people aside and just say, look, we need you for this to be successful. And, so we need you to be part of the team, and we need you to be positive about this and help us. If there are issues, let's be part of the solution, not part of the problem. So that's a good technique. Item number 3 here just talks about this, documenting your critical success stories. Really, why did you get CRM? What do you hope to get out of it? Have that documented, and so later you can just measure how you're doing. Otherwise you just have a system, and if one of your success factors is we want 100% participation, and after 3 weeks you've got about 30% of the organization using it, you've got a way to go to get to that success factor, right? And then I just threw a couple others on there. I deal with mostly sales organizations, so increased sales, increased win rates. It could be marketing related, right? We're going to run all of our marketing campaigns through CRM to generate our leads, or to analyze our leads. If you're in the service area, it could have to do with services, and entering 100% of our cases are going to be recorded in CRM in the service module, and we're going to have a response within 3 business days or whatever. And so set these factors so you have something to measure against. All right. What else do we want to do before we go live? I'm just going to give you a chance to read this slide. I don't want to read the whole thing to you, and then I'll just point out a couple. So it's related to keeping your users informed. So a couple on here that I want to point out is this this part about feedback and concerns. You know, you really have to talk to your folks ahead of time and find out what they're worried about, and make sure they're involved. And I hear this a lot. These two buzzwords: transparency and time. Time, we just can't do much about. Boy, I have to learn this, and you still want me to, make my quota or do all this other stuff. Maybe it's time for the next 4 weeks and this next 8 weeks to drop their current expectations. It's like, I want you to spend, an hour a day or 2 hours a day in this CRM. And I realize you're not going to make 8 sales calls a day. You're maybe only going to make 6. And that's okay for the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks, because I know in the long run, if you're averaging 8 sales calls a day, when we get CRM, up and running and solid, you're going to be more efficient. And, the hope is that you'll be able to make 9 sales calls in a day. Or an inside salesperson may be able to, do 50 activities a day rather than the 30 they're doing without a CRM. So, address the time issue, get people to understand, what those expectations are, and then transparency always comes into play, it seems like. So, you're only having me put all this stuff in the system so you can keep an eye on me. Well, guess what? That's true. There's a lot of benefits for all of us to know what everyone is working on, right? If you're sick, if you take a couple of weeks off for vacation, that information is in the system. I also like to point out that transparency works both ways, because one of the things I'm a big believer in, and you're going to see that in a slide or two, is integrating with your back office. So it's amazing how many people in organizations don't have access to data that they need to do their job. So if we can tie into your back office and make the back office data transparent to our users, so now they have transparency into that data. Now, if as managers and owners, you have transparency into what the teams are doing, because all that information is in CRM, it's win-win for everybody. So that's a big one. Just make sure you do that. Another one that's kind of tricky to articulate, but the consequences of not adopting CRM. If your organization is saying, this is what we're going to do as an organization, these are the tools we're going to use. If somebody just didn't use, if you all had email and they just, no, I just don't use email. Just think how unproductive that would be for everybody else. So you just have to let the team know that, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing, and I hope everybody wants to be a part of it. There's a couple other good ones in here, just talking about, making sure the team is involved and keep them updated, and, make sure they know that, part of what they do on a day-to-day basis, was taken into consideration when we designed this thing. So a lot of good stuff here. It's all about the people, right? The technical stuff we can figure out. It's the people. It's the people. All right, another big one that I see is this concept of ownership. And for those of you on the call who have big organizations and big CRM rollouts, it may have to be more than one people. There may be an ownership team, if you will, of CRM. And I'm not talking about the owner of your company. I'm talking about like that 1 or 2 or 3 people who are, just making sure everything's going as planned with CRM moving forward, right? The user adoption. Are there any ideas that we need to incorporate? Making sure the managers understand their role, and the users understand their role, and everybody's held accountable. So just that 1 or 2 people who just kind of play that role. A lot of times I see a big mistake here where we as a consulting firm, me specifically and many of the folks I work with, we will wear the hat of like the project manager, but there's usually a project manager that's on the customer side that we work very closely with. And a lot of times folks would think, well that's the person then on your end. That's the person who's going to own CRM. They're going to move this forward and have that responsibility forever. And that may work in your organization. But if you think about what a project manager is really good at, A project manager is good at defining a project, setting milestones, figure out what has to get done, and their goal is to just get the project done on time, on budget, meeting expectations. And then they move on to do that again and again and again with all the other projects. So, a project manager might not be the right person to own or run your CRM, long term. I'm not saying it can't work. I'm just saying don't fall into the trap with jumping to conclusions that, hey, the person who is running the project is just, they just got it. Because they're probably thinking when I get done, I'm done. But just make sure you define that owner. All right. Another big one that I talked about earlier is just integrating with your back office. So I come from an IT background. I worked in an oil company in IT, many roles within IT for 28 years. And so IT and data integration, data is near and dear to me. And one of the most important rules of thumb is one version of the truth, data integrity. And the last thing I want is my back office, my accounting system to say one thing and CRM to say another. So this seems like a tricky part of the project, and it is the most technical, I would say. It gets a little bit tricky, but it can all be figured out. And if you can tie into your back office, even if it doesn't even have to necessarily be real time in all cases. It can even be something as simple as every night we're going to take data from the accounting system and pump it into CRM to make sure the systems match. And I'm just going to flip over for a second and just show you some of the things that we've done. Let's see here. Let's go right here. So this is an example of this is the oil and gas product that Chad referenced earlier. I spend most of my time in this product working with clients who distribute, anything to do with like the oil and gas market. So I just happened to search for an account, and I'm just going to open up this account record. And just by looking at this account, the fact that this account is, I should have probably pulled this up earlier to save a little bit of time. Now it's refreshing some stuff. So it's going out and pulling up all the related information for this account, and I'm going to give it another second or two, and if it doesn't come up, I'll just move on. But okay, so the concept here is this is information about a customer. Seems very simple, but there's a customer number filled in, which tells me this is tied to my back office, and you're going to see a whole mess of locks next to a lot of these fields. I'm not allowed to mess with this in CRM because my accounting system is the one version of truth, and whatever happens there gets pumped over into CRM, each night, if you will. So if for some reason the phone number got updated, or I changed the salesperson for this account, in CRM we call that the owner, that would just get reflected in CRM the next day. So I don't have to worry about, okay, if we change something in the back office, make sure you go into CRM and update it here. So just all kinds of advantages with pulling in. This is just account data, but now just think if I had access to invoice data. So as you know, with CRM, all these files are related. So one of the things that we do with this oil and gas product is we tie into the invoices from the back office. So I can easily click and show me line items on invoices. So it's nothing real pretty, but it's powerful. So the last time this customer bought, looks like I have some old data here, was on February 9th of last year. This was the invoice that they purchased it on. They bought something in my heavy duty product line. This is the exact product they bought, the price they paid, our cost, how many they bought, the revenue it produced, and the gross profit it produced. So very, very granular. I get this question all the time from the customers I deal with. As a salesperson wants to know, when's the last time somebody bought something, how much did they pay for it, how much did they buy? It's all right here in front of them now. They don't have to log into the accounting system to get it. Once you have data this granular, a good CRM tool can do so much with it. Now there's reports we can create, there's charts, dashboards. I'll just jump in to show you something at a very high level. Again, using data from your accounting system. So I'm just going to go into, our dashboard area. And I think I have better data in last year. So I'm just going to look at my last year's scorecard. And what this is going to do is look at all of that order history combined for all of last year. And it's going to show me how much actual gross profit we got and how much volume, how many units we kind of push through the system. So these diamonds are actually an optional thing, and this has nothing to do with your back office, but you can set goals, and these are quarterly goals. So obviously, if this is all of last year, we came well short of our goal of, you know, way up here. So, and then again, it's just a dashboard within CRM. I can drill within this data, so I can just click on this, and okay, that's the company. Then you can drill down and break it into your departments. And again, this is mostly with the oil and gas plant. From there, I could break down lubricants into like what product lines do I sell? And maybe I want to analyze, you know, my grease business for last year. You know, these are goals for each salesperson for the lubricants grease business. And look at that. I didn't crush it, but I did pretty good. So I can go one step deeper here. Again, this is all your data. I can go one step deeper and say, okay, show me all my accounts and how many of those accounts contributed to the lubricants grease business. So all my accounts are listed. I can easily sort this ascending or descending. And now I'm quickly looking at my lubricant grease accounts, my best one, obviously then down to my worst one. Again, with this data at my fingertips, you know, a salesperson has access to lots of information. And there are dozens of charts and reports that you can build once you have that granular data. So definitely take advantage. Data integration. This is a big one. All right, item number 7 on here. Don't over-engineer phase 1. I mean, I realize sometimes you don't have options. If you're given a budget, then you've got to like do it all, you know, do it all at once. But you will learn so much on the first rollout. You'll learn so much about CRM and what it can do and what it can't do and what's easy to do and what's hard to do. All of that is theoretical in the beginning. So before you go live, think about like your big picture. It's great, have a big picture. And when you're thinking about what do we really want to do to get started, and then okay, let's do that. Work out all the little kinks, and then 4 months later, we're gonna work on phase 2, and then phase 3, and phase 4. And you're hearing this from a consulting firm saying that, right? The best thing for us really would be to have a big project and tons of hours, tons of time, right? But we're really worried about it being successful, right? Let's have it be successful and then just build on that success. So this is hard for some people to realize because they have all these ideas and they just want to do it all. It's going to be a big project, and then it's going to be a big undertaking for your user community, and so let's just ease into this. A very obvious one, right? Test. We're trying to eliminate excuses. So is everything working? And then number 9 here, if there's a way to let your team have access to CRM multiple ways, right? People can do so much on their phone, on their iPad, on their tablet, on their laptop, through the internet, through Outlook. I mean, the more ways you can give them that make sense for them, I mean, the better. But, don't just try to have all those options if you don't need them, right? If everybody using CRM is in the office, okay, right? You don't have to worry about mobile, right? But if most of your team is out in the field, what do they want to have access to CRM via, would they rather have it on a bigger device? So maybe an iPad or a tablet, or is a phone good enough? Phone, the screen's a little bit small, obviously. So think about how they want to access CRM. Okay. Now we're about to go live. So this could be one day. This could be, a couple days in a row with different groups. So let's just see. What would I recommend for training day? So now we're about to go live. And first step here, kick off the training. Well, obviously, right? It's 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:30 in the morning. Everybody's rolling in, getting set up. Okay, we're going to start the training. I think you have a golden opportunity here. Those first 10 or 15 minutes of training, really reiterate expectations, reiterate why you're here, why you're doing this as an organization, why you think it will help them do their job better. It's just a golden opportunity. One of my best customers so far, I was just with a customer all last week, and is a big company, and the president of the company came and did the kickoff, kicked off the training. I mean, wow. I mean, it was awesome. People were paying attention. So whether it be the president or a GM or somebody, just get in there to kind of set that stage. And the training throughout the day isn't going to be, completely about where to point and click. I mean, I actually spend more time in training talking about business processes and why we're doing things, not, okay, click here, and click there, okay, and then hit save. I mean, I could probably do the training I do in about 4 hours, but we take a whole day, and we just make sure everything is covered. All right, then as far as the actual training goes, everybody has different training styles. I'm just going to explain, the process I use. And when it comes to training, I pretty much explain it first, so we talk about it. Then I demonstrate it, so I show them. And while I'm doing all of that, laptops are closed, right? Everybody's focused. We're all participating in the discussion. And then when we're pretty solid, then everybody flips open their laptops and they do it. So I let them try it, make sure they're good on that piece of it, and then we move on to another piece. So the concept here is, hear it, see it, do it. A lot of different ways to learn it then, so hopefully, they grasp it. Some are obvious ones, supply some quick reference cards. Everybody learns differently, so it's just a good idea to have some handouts they might want to scribble on or reference later. So that's always a good thing to do. What else? I would also say that as you're doing this training, if you can use real-world examples, real-life examples, what they would do in their day-to-day, it's going to resonate a lot better. And finally, this might be a push. I know we do it with our oil and gas product, but if there's anybody in your organization who's pretty good at making videos, and now with this technology, like I just do a webinar to myself basically, and do a little recording. And I'll record a little snippet of the software. So I'll just kind of show you here again. I'll just flip over to our CRM. So in the same system that we sell to oil and gas distributors, when they get our system, if they go into this workplace area, there's a section for videos. This could just as easily be like on your intranet or whatever, but because they're in CRM, why not just throw the videos right in there? So our techie guys found a way to do this. And when I make videos, I can just throw them out here, and these are little 10, 15-minute snippets of, the sales process, how to run reports, how to use these opportunity dashboards, how to use activities, and the list goes on and on and on. Well, you might just have a couple out there. Again, just different ways that people learn. I just want to learn at my own pace, and if I can just watch this video, it'll give me a refresher, and then, I'll be more productive. So just another option. All right, still on the day of training, what else might you want to consider? Get other business areas involved. So this first rollout might be for one certain area, but typically, again, CRM involves business processes. Business processes usually cross over department lines, so it might affect other areas, and why not just offer to have them folks just kind of pop in and spend a little time in the back of the room while the training's going on, just to kind of see what's going on. Just a good way not only for them to learn, but also maybe for all of us to get some feedback from an outsider. What'd you think of the training? Just have them kind of play that role as well. Super big couple items coming up here. 15 and 16 are so near and dear to my heart. Set clear expectations. If I come into training and I'm told, okay, we got to go to CRM training today, and I sit through all the training, and I learn how to point and click, and I know how to use it, and then the training is over, and then I just go back to work, right? Okay, what am I supposed to do now? So it's just so important, usually at the beginning of the training, and then even at the end, to just reiterate expectations. Okay, here's what we're going to do different now, folks. And I work with my clients, and we try to have a really good 4-week plan. Like, here's what we're going to do week 1. And by we, I mean, the folks who got trained. Here's what we expect out of week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. I mean, the most important 4 weeks are the first 4 weeks. If everybody goes back to work, right, they're gonna forget everything they learned. So we just gotta nail it, like the first 4 weeks, and then it just becomes habit. And to really make that work, the other thing I recommend, and I hope I'm using the right word here, is define 3, 4, 5, maybe more competencies or skills that you want them to take from CRM. And then once a week, let's say it's every Friday morning, you send off an email to the team with the list, and you say, send me a quick email back on a scale of 1 to 10. or 0 to 10, your level. So you might even ask them during the training, and then definitely that's going to be one of the after training to follow up on this. So I'll just give you an example. One of the things I do personally is, because I know this is just a great competency, is just navigating through the software. Whether it's looking stuff up, it doesn't even have to be doing anything, meaning creating leads or updating your pipeline or doing a marketing campaign, just navigating through the software. And when people walk into the room, they're all a 0. And by 11 o'clock, you just kind of poll them, hey, if you just kind of had to give me a number, where are you at with just navigating through this software? Does it seem hard? Does it seem easy? Where do you think you're at? And, from 8 o'clock in the morning until 11, you'll just see people, all of a sudden you're hearing 3s and 4s. And maybe by mid-afternoon, you've even got a 5 or a 6. Well, now you ask that question every week. By the end of week 4, you really want everybody to be, an 8, 9, or 10 at all your competencies. And if they're not, let's do some more training. Let's make sure we're all on the same page. So just a great way, setting expectations, setting some competency levels, some competencies for them to, get good at, and you'll reap the benefits. All right. Lastly on this one is just everybody learns different. Somebody might have missed the training. Make sure you offer some follow-up training. So now, what are we going to do after the fact? And I see I'm got about 7, 8 minutes left, so I'll kind of wrap things up here. So afterwards, really, make sure they know who to call for help, right? Find your subject matter experts, your power users. Make sure I know who to call. Maybe that owner or that ownership team. Who do I call? Make CRM, just 19 and 20 are kind of related. They're just part of what you do now. When you have your one-on-one meetings and you're coaching somebody, you're training them, pull up CRM in your team meetings. When you're analyzing that last marketing campaign, when you're analyzing the company pipeline, right? You're just pulling that up in CRM. When you're analyzing your cases this week and how we did as a service organization, right? It's just, you just fire up CRM and there it is. I hear this all the time. If it's not in CRM, it doesn't exist. So don't talk to me about that marketing campaign, that case, or that opportunity if it's not in the system. Let's get it in there. And then we talked about each week asking them for their, to grade themselves, and then obviously hold people accountable. So really important. Those first 4, 5, 6 weeks, just get everybody on board. Finally, the last few here are periodically review how you're doing on your critical success factors and let the team know, so more keeping them in the loop. I'm sure you're going to learn from each other. You can encourage your users to share their little tricks and tips. Again, but as that owner group or those power users, yeah, send out just a 1 or 2 sentence email with maybe a screenshot every couple days. Hey, Bob asked this question. I gave him the answer. The other folks might have the same question. So here's how you do X. Boom, just a quick deal. Make sure you have a plan for new employees. Sometimes that gets forgotten. You get so good into it, and then all of a sudden you hire somebody new. It's like, ooh, what are we going to do? Oh, you gotta just start using CRM here. Well, try to get something a little bit more organized than that. Conduct those follow-up training sessions, maybe some lunch and learns, anything to just keep it fresh, and then just start thinking about phase 2. Right? What are we going to do next? Now you've learned so much. You'll have probably different people involved. Start another project and get that moving. So one of the things I don't want to spend a lot of time, I'm not going to read all these to you, but there's like 3 slides that we came up with just as examples for you to think of like the benefits of CRM. So if you're trying to convince, let's say, a sales team some of the benefits, these are some of the benefits. I had, this isn't in here, but I just did this training, and I had somebody after about 3 hours of the training, just the light went on for them, and they said, this CRM is going to be my personal secretary. It's like anytime I have a question or anytime, I need some information, I'm just going to go right to CRM, right? Because it has account information, invoice information. You can put activities in CRM to remind you to do things, right? Your pipeline is in there. Your customers are, it's all in there. And I thought, wow, that resonated with me big time. Another person said CRM. Let's see, CRM, that's can't remember much. And so CRM will help you remember everything. You just got to remember to go to CRM, because if you put it in there, I have to call, Mary next Friday. You put it in there, give it a due date the next Friday, and forget about it. right? Boom, next Friday rolls around. There it is. Oh yeah, I got to call Mary. What were I going to talk to her about? It's all right in CRM because you put it in there. So these are some reasons, some benefits to CRM, and you're going to have access to the video here, so you can, if you want to replay it, you can pause it here and read up on those. Here's another set. You have quantification, so you'll be able to have data. You'll be more organized. Be able to, good effective targeting of marketing campaigns. So a lot of good examples here. And then obviously, simple features. It's designed for customer relationship, and then we talked about access anywhere. So just a lot of benefits for your sales team. All right, so let's see, what else did I have? Kind of checking things out. So I'm hoping you've come away with a couple action items. There was 27 bullets there. I tell you, if you've done all of these and you're still struggling, I want to talk to you. Find out where your pain points are, because I've seen so many. I'm hoping I addressed most, if not all of them. But these are a couple that, I kind of check off that I make sure of the 27. If there's no owner of CRM, I know we're in trouble. Everybody's going to go off and do their own thing and do what they want, and nobody's like driving this. Just keeping the users involved and updated. You just can't forget about that. And then setting and measuring those competency levels. If I do just these three, I'm a long way there, but I'd recommend you really focus on all 27 of them. So with that, Chad, if you're still on the line, I am going to send it to you to talk about this last slide, because these folks might even want more resources than this video. So Chad, back to you.
Hey, thanks a lot, Steve. Great information out there, and I know I got some comments that people really enjoyed a lot of the things you mentioned. So just to kind of wrap things up, we got a couple minutes left, so if you do have any questions, feel free to punch those in. But I just want to let you know about some other resources. Obviously, you can go into Google and just find tons and tons of resources on user adoption. And even though we mentioned some today, we could easily make a list of 100 things. One thing we've got on our website at Ledger Partners is a CRM video library. So from different platforms, from like Salesforce and marketing automation software, Dynamics CRM, different tips on how to use different tools. Another thing is, and Steve talked about kind of those tips and tricks that encouraging your users to come up with and sharing those. We've got our people here that we put out weekly tips and tricks for Dynamics CRM, for Salesforce, for user adoption, for a number of different topics. So, check out our blog. We've got different categories that you can subscribe to if you're on Salesforce, if you're on Dynamics CRM, if you kind of want all of it, that'd be great. Then I'd also like to just point out some additional webinars we've got coming up for marketing automation. If you happen to use Dynamics CRM, and I know we've got a number of people on the webinar today that do, we offer a complimentary once a month Microsoft Dynamics CRM user group where we'll do a training topic that kind of puts it front and center, from maybe using advanced finds and reports to navigation, and just kind of helping people learn the tool better so that they, if they're not frustrated, they're more likely to use it. And then we touch on any user-submitted questions that come in ahead of time, and those can be questions across the whole board. After that, we've got Microsoft Office 365, as well as a marketing focus and sales from turning your website into a lead generation machine. So check out those webinars, those resources, and if you have any feedback, we'd love to hear from you. If you're struggling with user adoption, if you're still looking at CRM or a number of things, the really best thing to do is also talk to us. We'll be getting an email this afternoon with contact information and also recording of this session. So again, I want to thank everyone for joining us. Steve, I want to thank you for some great tips, and have a great day. Thank you.